Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing on today? I am super duper excited because guess what? Have we got an author for you on today? We are hanging out with author Avery Cunningham, her debut historical fiction, The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Oh my goodness, guys. You guys are in for a treat on today. And of course, you know what to do here at the cafe. A like, tag, and share. Tell a friend to come on down because we're hanging out with author Avery Cunningham on today. Avery, my friend, I am going to allow you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the people.
Yes, hi. Hi. Thank you so much, Miss Angela, for having me on. This is such a great opportunity. I'm so excited to speak with you and to speak with all of your incredible audience. And I'm just so happy to be here and have this chance to have this conversation. So yes, my name is Avery Cunningham. I am a debut novelist. My debut novel, The Mayor of Maxwell Street, launched this past January, January 30th. It's a work of historical fiction about an ambitious Black debutante who enlists the help of a low-level speakeasy manager to identify the head of an underground crime syndicate, and both of them are thrust into the dangerous and gritty world of Prohibition-era Chicago. It's a story about intrigue, about sacrifice, about ambition, and about all the choices that we make to achieve our dreams along the way, especially as people of color.
I love that. I love that as well. Now, Avery, let me just tell you, okay, my friend, we got to talk about the cover first. When I saw this cover, I was like, oh my goodness, okay. And I got really excited. I am a cover nerd. We
Ah,
have Myra Cook hanging out with us. Hey, Myra, thank you for joining us. We got Veronica Lockett hanging out with us. Thank you so much for joining us as well. Okay, I want to talk about this cover. When you saw the final cover for the Mayor of Maxwell Street, what was that like for you?
it was pretty stunning. And I believe all authors, especially debuts, have this kind of ideal of what they think their cover should look like for their novel. And I have to say that whatever my vision was, it didn't come anything close to what the final options were. This cover really does a lot of incredible work for the novel, a lot of really wonderful heavy lifting without being too verbose in a visual sense. It
Mhm.
is very streamlined. It gets directly to the point, but it invokes all of the feelings and emotions and ideals that you're supposed to have going into this novel. It really brings out the sense of the Art Deco 1920s aesthetic of the time. All of the jewel tones imply this rich,
Yes.
wealthy, luxurious type of atmosphere that's very present in the novel. And then, of course, what I really appreciate is that they make the main character, a dark-skinned Black woman, the central figure. There was really
Mhm.
no messing around about that, and I really appreciate my publishers for taking that initiative to make sure that the main character is presented fully, centrally, and exclusively on the cover, and making sure that she fits the description that is described in the very start of the book as accurately as possible, and
Yes.
that really leaves no room for any misinterpretation about what you're
Mhm.
about to get into.
I love that. I love that. Now, okay. So, Avery, I'm gonna get you to spill a little bit of tea, my friend.
Okay, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Was this your original working title, my friend, or the title evolved? Just spill a little tea.
Yeah, of course. I believe the title evolved a little bit over the course of the drafting process and working with my publishers, but ultimately it's the title that drove so much of the storytelling. And one of my original titles I was really attached to for a long time was Means and Opportunity. And I think that's when
Oh,
I thought this was going to be a bit more of a romantic type of story. And
okay.
once I started writing and I really discovered how much I wanted to lean into the history of the time, into the intrigue, into the vibrancy and full spectrum of Chicago at this time, I
Yeah.
really realized that it needed to be a bit more of an intriguing title and something that really got to the heart of what the story was going to cover. And I really have to thank my publishers and my entire team for their willingness to be all in on this story. And we really worked together to come to this title that is truly iconic, I feel.
I love it, and I think it's perfect for the cover as well because
Mm.
I love that you keep using the word intriguing because again, this is an intriguing story, guys. If you have not read The Mayor of Maxwell Street, let me just tell you, Avery will have you on the edge of your seat, okay? It's suspenseful, it's intriguing, it's clutching your pearls, it's Okay, first of all, it's 1920s Chicago, okay? And
Mhm.
you guys know about the Roaring 20s. I mean, it's the grit, it's the glitz, it's the glam. And of
Right.
course, if you guys are fans of The Great Gatsby, you do get a Great Gatsby feel as well.
Mhm.
It's just all in. And you hit us with a headliner, like even starting at the beginning of how this book starts as
Mm.
well. But for you, Avery, before we get into all of that, can you share with the people, because this is your debut novel, The Mayor
Yes.
of Maxwell Street? Would Avery say that historical fiction found her, or did you find historical fiction?
Mm. That's an interesting question. I think I've always been drawn to historical fiction
Uh-huh.
in my reading and in even when I was in school and in undergrad and graduate school, when I was in writing workshops, a lot of my stories would have a historical bent to it. So it's kind of a meeting in the middle. And I even think back to my first real novel. I call it a real novel. I was 12 years old. It was not a real novel, but I thought
Okay.
it was at the time. It was set in medieval France. So I think this has always been a path for me of
Uh-huh.
historical fiction. So it's a little bit of both. Historical fiction found me as a young reader, and then it wasn't until I really discovered the type of writer I wanted to be that I found historical fiction as the genre that I chose to work in.
Wow, wow. Now, for your first novel, The Mayor of Maxwell Street, okay, you given us Chicago 1920s, okay? And you did a great job in this book or what have you. But can you share with us what inspired that theme as
Mm,
well as what inspired this book?
right. So I guess that's a twofold question. I'll start with the
Uh-huh.
initial inspiration for the story itself, and that really started back in the early 2020s when we had a lot of media that was attempting and valiantly attempting to create more representation in spaces that
Mhm.
normally lacked diversity. One of the first most common examples that comes to mind might be Bridgerton, but there's also an Anne Boleyn retelling that approached this sense of half colorblind but not quite colorblind casting. And while I
Ooh.
really appreciated the representation, I was happy to see it, I was glad for it. A part of me was a little frustrated that our stories continued to not be the central narrative. It was more incorporating us into spaces that took very strict and drastic measures to not have any representation within those spaces. So,
Mhm.
in a sense, I felt a kind of erasure of our actual history. And speaking of our actual history, Black American history, and all of its many facets, especially the original Black elite that existed in this country going back hundreds of years. And so I started to do a little bit more research. I read novels like Lawrence Otis Graham, the late Lawrence Otis Graham's Our Kind of People. I read the original Black Elite by Elizabeth Dowling Taylor, and all of these other books, especially nonfiction books that uncover this entire new side of Black history that I, even myself growing up, wasn't fully aware of. And the more I learned, the more I wished that I could write in this space, in this world, in this environment, and tell the stories of these individuals. And then, the early 2020s, everybody was rereading The Great Gatsby because we were all wondering, where's the 2020s going to mimic the 1920s and things like that. So I, like everybody else, read The Great Gatsby. It's a short book, read in an afternoon. And while I was reading it, there was all of this wonderful dialogue and criticism and analysis that I discovered,
Uh-huh.
saying that you, in some ways, could reread The Great Gatsby as the story of a non-white man passing for white, which
Okay.
I loved. I absolutely loved. I loved
Uh-huh.
that reading. I love that interpretation, and it changed my entire view of the entire novel. Of course, I did not think
Wow.
that was Fitzgerald's aim at all, but I,
Okay.
I think viewing The Great Gatsby from that perspective makes it a bit more of a American type of story. And so
Okay.
thinking, as I was exploring these two schools of thought, so to speak, is the Great Gatsby and this new interpretation in the world of the original Black elite. I was wondering, how can we tell the story of both of these institutions in the same way? And how, when you start talking about what a Black American man living in the 1920s, this era of the so-called American dream,
Mhm.
how does someone make a way for themselves in this time period with all of these different status quos measured against them? And so that was the
Wow.
original initial inspiration for the book. And the 1920s itself was such a pivotal time in American history.
Yes.
It was an era of great wealth, but also an era of
Mhm.
great poverty. It was
Yeah.
the rise of organized crime. It was the era of Jim Crow. It was the era of the Great Migration, and all of these different aspects of American history, I feel, were really well captured in Chicago during
Yeah.
this time. It's almost like a microcosm of the country itself
Mhm.
in this city, and the chance to paint this setting and give this world as the backdrop for these characters was just a wonderful opportunity.
Wow, and I'm glad that you said that too, because even in reading this story, you bring all of that to life, and it's almost like Chicago is like a character in itself, if that
Mm,
makes sense. Like what was like the underground Chicago was like a character in itself, in addition to the other characters, and
mm,
just the whole backdrop. And I love how you gave us inklings of what was going on around the world during this time in the 1920s. Now, I want to ask you this about the mayor of Maxwell Street. Before I do that, guys, if you're just joining us, I am hanging out with Avery Cunningham. Guys, we are so excited for her, super duper proud of her. This is her debut novel, The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Guys, she's given us historical fiction. She's given us all the feels of the 1920s. You will be on the edge of your seat. It's a game of cat and mouse, finding out and determining who the mayor of Maxwell Street is. I mean, there are some moments where I'm like, okay. Now I was playing detective like the whole time. I was
right.
literally, I don't know if those who have read it, I was like, I'm gonna figure this out who it is. Okay. But
Good,
guys,
good. That's part of the process.
yes, it's part of the process. Now let me ask you this.
Mm,
Was that intentional in your writing that you wanted readers to actually place themselves there inside of this amazing novel and put on their detective or investigative hats? Because I mean, we were going to be a journalist, with Nellie. We was
mhm.
going to figure this out. But was that your intention?
I think part of it, and the reason I don't describe this as, a capital M mystery is that it's more a mystery for Nellie, that I was always
Yes.
okay with readers figuring out the in all any and all twists as early as possible. I was
Okay.
totally okay with that. What I wanted them to feel was Nellie's experience going through
When
this
she
journey
figured it
and the
out.
choices
Yes.
she makes, right, and it actually
Yes.
makes it a lot more delicious if readers figure it out a little bit earlier, because then they're just building this sense of dread throughout the entire novel, which makes it a really, really tense
Yes.
reading experience.
Oh my guys, let me just tell you, it's a whole moment. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a whole moment because we ain't gonna spill too much. We're gonna spill some tea,
Right.
but not too much tea. It's a whole moment. That's all we're gonna say. Now, for you, can you share with us? You told us a little bit about the title, you told us a little bit about this cover, all of that good stuff. But I want to ask you this, and this may be some tea spilling for you. Think about the characters of this book, okay? And think about the plot of this book. For you, what came first, Avery? Was it these amazing, rich, complex characters? Because in depth, they're
Mm,
all like not really showing the real them. Like they all got
mm,
something that they are hiding or what have you. But was it the characters or was it the plot?
mm. It's a little twofold.
Oh,
I think you I s because of how I started, I think I started with the plot. I tried to outline as much of the major plot points as possible, as early as possible, so I could have some kind of guide as I was going forward to the writing process. But the characters really became their own individuals over the course of the storytelling, no matter what kind of model I gave them at the beginning, whatever kind of character beats I wanted them to hit, as they spoke to each other, as they interacted with each other. And I know this may sound very bizarre for anyone who's hearing a writer talk about their characters as if they were actual people placed in actual situations, but that's how it feels sometimes, that you know who these characters are, you know what their beliefs are, their secrets, their
mm-hmm.
backstories. So when they start interacting, a lot of those depths of character really do start to come out anew. And that experience really did make the novel for me. So even though I feel like the plot came first, just from a strictly like logistical standpoint, the characters are what finished the experience and really carried the entire drafting experience.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Guys, if you are just joining us, we're hanging out with a debut novelist, Avery Cunningham, guys. Her new release, The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Let me just tell you, you guys are in for a treat. We will be sharing with you how you can get your hands on a copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street as well. And of course, yes, Avery will be reading with us a short snippet. So, Avery, we'll get into that in a little bit. I'll let you actually set the scene, set the tone, all of that good stuff
Okay.
too. But let's talk about these characters a little bit. And guys,
Yes.
let me just tell you, they complex. Okay, these characters, as well. Let's start with, of course, guys, Penelope or
Mhm.
Nellie
Mm,
Sawyer. What do you want to say about her? How would you describe her to us?
mm. Nellie is such a almost a controversial type of character.
Yes.
She's a character who very firmly wants to be a part of something bigger than herself. She has this great sense of purpose, of wanting to prove herself, to prove her own
Mm-hmm.
capabilities outside of the incredible legacy that her parents have built. And over the course of the novel, we see her put herself into even dangerous situations, all in the hope that she can prove that she is ready, that she is worthy, that she is worth considering in as her own person beyond, the whole tapestry of her family. And that's such an interesting characterization because so often she's almost the villain of her own story in some ways. She's trying
Right.
so hard and may double back on her at moments, and it's all a learning experience for her. And I feel like this is a situation that a lot of young people fall into, especially young people like her who were raised in a loving environment with this sense of protection, almost in a bubble.
Yeah.
That once you start to realize the stakes of the world outside of your bubble, you understand your own privilege, like Nellie does. She understands her own limitations, so to speak, but she still wants so badly to make effective change. She sees the world as it is, and she wants to use her abilities and the capabilities and her intelligence and her pure force of will to do more. But we also see Nellie fall so often into her own biases, her own privileges,
Yeah.
and be challenged for that, be called out on it, and see the consequences of those actions. Which is, I think, a wonderful experience for any character. I love it when characters um, make decisions that have true consequences. And it's even better if the consequences are outside of themselves, because then they see the true weight of all of those choices and how their individualism can sometimes affect the world around them in really concerning ways. So yeah, Nellie is a character you either love or hate, I think, but also always a character who you can't look away from.
Right. And Avery, it's almost like with Nelly, it was like if someone says, Nelly, don't touch that, it's hot, she's gonna touch it because she want to experience it for herself, even though they just I was because there were times where Nelly kept me talking to the book. Literally. I was like, really, really, Nelly, really. I mean, I was talking to this book, and like you said, because some of the situations that she would put herself in
Mm,
or insert herself in, I was like, oh my goodness. So, guys, if you're just joining us, we're talking about The Mayor of Maxwell Street. It is a page turner. It will keep you on the edge of your toes. You will be fact finding, you'll be taking notes, keeping all the pieces together. If you're just joining us, we're hanging out with Avery Cunningham on today, guys, talking about her debut novel, the Mayor of Maxwell Street. And of course, if you have a question or a comment,
mhm.
be sure to include it in the comment section. Now, let's talk a little bit about Jay.
Right.
And the reason I said Jay, because I kind of feel like he's two characters. You got Jay and then you got Jimmy Blue Eyes. Okay.
Right.
And so if you want to tell us a little bit about both, feel free. But what can you say about that character? And did
Yes.
you look at it as two characters into one?
Oh, right. Well, that's a very interesting question. It's more, instead of two characters as one, it's more a character or a person at two extremes of their lives. When you're first
Hmm.
introduced
Oh,
to
wow. Yes,
Jay,
Avery.
you think you see him as Jimmy Blue Eyes, as this young man raised in a starkly segregated environment, who himself is very different from everyone around him in every way, who's carrying a lot of ghosts, who's carrying a lot of guilt to an extent, but also carrying this belief and acknowledge that he can be great if just given the room and the space and the opportunities to be, his full potential. And when we see Jay, we see this person who has fully stepped into that ideal, that if only I can push myself and use all of my abilities, all of my skill, all of these opportunities to make a way for myself, then that's what I'm going to do. So
Mhm.
as I said, it's kind of a person at two different extremes of their lives. And
Yeah.
what I really love to see is how, and apologies everyone, a train is going by. I love to see characters who are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their goals. And Jay is certainly someone who does that. And he comes by it honestly. He is raised in such an environment where he realizes the only way I'm going to achieve something greater and better and the fullness of my potential is if I have to sacrifice some of myself along the way, that I have to
Mm.
let go of my some of my own moral and emotional beliefs and let go of people along the way and really just turn myself into whatever I need to be for those doors to be opened. And so we see him make those choices, but we come to understand that he sacrifices a little bit more than himself along the way. He also is very willing to sacrifice others.
Yes, yes, and this book is, full of, uh, sacrifices and,
Mm,
decisions, and,
mm,
I mean, um and also some of those decisions, like, is it them or me?
right.
It was just like, wow, and you had to make some quick decisions, is
Right,
it either
right,
the other person or it's me? Okay, how am I gonna make this work, you know?
right.
So I was like, "Ooh, okay."
Yes, definitely. And that was very much the 1920s. It was a
Yes,
time of complete individualism and
yes,
personal
yes.
liberation. But I guess you always have to think
Yeah, and also, knowing,
about when
like,
it comes,
who to
kind of what
trust,
your
like, who
own
could you trust?
threshold is going to be.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and trust
mhm.
was, oh man, trust was an issue as well. Like, okay,
Oh,
can I trust
certainly.
this person? Am I side on this person? Who knows whose backstory?
Right.
All of that good stuff was into this as well. And you dealt with a lot of different things from prohibition to colorism, to classism.
Mm.
Um, Oh man, you dealt with so many things in this book. Was that also intentional for you?
Yes, and I think for myself, the type of writer I am, I start with themes very often. I
Mm,
start with what kind of overarching narratives and um ideas that readers should take away. What kind of archetypes do I want to delve into? What type of stories or narratives do I want to expose? So I always start with themes whenever starting a project. And my hope is that those themes can be integrated in new ways, that you can see how something like classism, for example, can be viewed through the lens of those on the inside and those on the outside. How racism is viewed by those who perpetuate racism and those who are experiencing it. How corruption can be used to someone's benefit as well, of course, to someone's end. So that's one of the wonderful things about storytelling. I feel how these great themes writers are able to twist them and change them to where you understand them in new and really interesting ways.
wow, wow. Now okay, think about the characters. We're gonna go back to the characters a little bit.
Yes.
When you think about these characters, which character was the most interesting and fun? Because some of these characters, guys, they had a fun side to them and fun for you to write.
Mm,
But on the flip side,
mm,
is there a character that was a little more complex and at moments gave Avery pause? So, Avery,
mm.
that's a two-part question for you, and I'll let you kind of take it away and answer it the way that you want.
Yes, definitely. So in terms of the most fun, it has to be Sequoia. She's a fan favorite.
Oh, the fashion.
Right, exactly, exactly. She was so much fun because she's the most stylish, because she has so much wit, because she's able
Yes,
to get to the heart of people so quickly and succinctly. That made her such a fun time to write, but also
yes,
because of her own backstory, that she's someone who's hiding so many facets of her own self.
yes.
She's someone who's created herself, like almost every other character. She's created herself, but she's using that creation in a lot of different ways. Her
Uh-huh.
personal choices are very different than other characters who are
Mhm.
working with similar materials, so to speak. So she was the most fun to write. She really kind of embodied the aesthetic of the 1920s as a character. Now, in terms of the more difficult to write, it probably it probably would be Nellie, I think, because Nellie's the
Oh,
character who changed the most over the course of the
yes.
story. She's the character who starts in one place and has pretty much every single one of her beliefs and knowledge about herself, knowledge about the world, about the people around her, all challenged
Mhm.
over the course of the entire story, almost at every
Yes.
turn. And that can be challenging. That can be challenging for a writer because that means you're poking holes in your own character, that you're starting to
Mhm.
expose, the faults of a character, which can be risky as a writer. You
Look,
want your
Avery,
characters to
you're
be
spilling the
likable.
good tea. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you for asking such incredible questions. But yeah, it's hard to write a character who has to learn hard lessons sometimes because
And
then
hard lessons did she learn?
exactly. But that's also one of the joys of writing.
Yeah, and even with her, it was almost like she had to become a chameleon in
Mm,
certain situations and quickly.
mhm,
She had to adapt to whatever those different environments are because sometimes the changing of pace was quick,
mhm,
and it was interesting of how her character developed and grew throughout the novel. Like I said, some of those decisions you was you was even questioning some of her decisions, like child, why? Like, why are you doing that?
right, which is great. I want people to
But
question her
I mean,
decisions.
but hey, she was finding answers, and the
Right.
more she was finding answers, the more y'all. I'm gonna just tell you, the more she dug, it was just like, ooh, this is getting good right here. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Now, Cheryl has a great question. She wanted to know how long did it take to publish from when you started writing this book, The Mayor of
Mm.
Maxwell Street? Great question, Cheryl.
Yes, thank you so much. So interesting. My publishing story is a little bit backwards as opposed to what most people might expect. The Mary of Maxwell Street actually sold on proposal, which means that when I first sold the book, it was sold based off of a sample, maybe the first 40 pages or so, and a synopsis and an outline. So essentially, the book was bought and sold before I even got into the meat of the drafting process. So I
Wow.
had a very set outline from the get-go, which was an entire opposite of all of my other writing experiences thus far. So from contract to turning in, it was just about 8 to 10 months or so of
Okay.
an actual writing process, which was faster than I think anything I've ever written before in my life. And it was a wonderful experience, even though it was stressful and it was fast paced, but also it really removed a lot of the myth around being a writer, that the reality is that you can't just show up at your computer when you want to. You can't think about writing when it's convenient to you. You can't write on days when you're off work. You can't just write on days you're on vacation. That you have to write every day and you have to write consistently, because this is a professional experience and you have a goal at the end of it. So as stressful as that experience was as for a new writer who was working on a really tight deadline for the first time, it also was a great professional challenge to me and taught me, what it actually takes to be the kind of consistent writer and prolific writer that I want to be.
I love that. Thank you for answering that question. Okay, guys, I know y'all are ready. So Avery is getting ready to share with us a short snippet of the mayor of Maxwell Street. And Avery, feel free to set the scene, set the tone however you want. And then we are ready when you are, my friend.
Yes, of course. So I think one of the aspects that people really enjoy about this book is the setting and the vibrancy of the setting and the imagery. So I think what I'm going to do is one of our initial descriptions of one of the main settings for the novel, which is called the Lantern Club. It is
Mm,
a speakeasy located on Maxwell Street, and it's a really wonderful representation of this era in Chicago culture and Chicago nightlife. And so, yeah, so I think I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from that when our main
okay.
character Nellie first steps into this underground speakeasy environment. All right. It was a one-room basement, long and wide, that covered the length of the building above. A place originally used to store old furniture and furnaces had been revived as something enchanted. The ceiling was so low that Nellie could touch it as she jumped, and every inch was strung with brightly mottled oblong lamps of copper and mosaic glass. The glow turned the dance floor into a living kaleidoscope. The club was packed with people, most of them dancing. Most looked like they'd just come in off a factory floor, a restaurant's kitchen, or scrubbing toilets at a tycoon's mansion. Others dressed in the way of the old country, wherever that might have been. And one woman in particular wore a million tiny glass teardrops draped so that when she danced, she sparkled like the heart of a chandelier. All this was filtered through the music's constant thrumming presence. It drove the energy of the place, and that energy was frantic. A woman was on a stage at the far end of the club, perspired and screamed. Her voice was raw and untethered as she sang the familiar song, You Better Run, but not in the old way. Instead of Moses and Samson, these lyrics told of 35th Street, Lincoln Theater, and The Stroll. The desperately hopeful spiritual now had a static to it that would have been sacrilegious if not for the way folk danced. Together they threw up their hands and sang Run, Run, Run in all their accented English. They moved with a current that felt like worship, bringing the song out of the South and into this bright new city of refuge. Yeah.
Guys, there you have it. That is a snippet of the mayor of Maxwell Street. We will definitely be sharing with you how you can get your hands on a copy
Mhm.
of this story. This is Avery Cunningham's debut novel. It is still hot off the press. It came out in January, but it is still hot off the press, guys. Let me just tell you, you will definitely want to read this book. It's one of those that you may want to buddy read. You may want to tell a friend to tell a
Mm,
friend to read it with you because you're gonna want to talk to somebody about what's going on in the
mhm.
mayor of Maxwell Street. Now, Avery, we're going to play a round of this or that, my friend, but I promise
Okay.
you there is no right or wrong answer. It is all things according to Avery Cunningham. Are you ready, my friend?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Now, Avery, are you a morning person or night owl?
Mm, mm. I am I'm a morning person in spirit, but I'm a night owl in practicality. I'd
Okay.
always rather stay up late than wake up early,
Okay.
but I
Now,
love the
we're taking
morning.
I love it. We're taking a trip, Avery. All right. Are you a plane ride? Or are we going on a road trip? Plane ride or road trip?
Mm. Road trip, but only with the right
Okay.
person.
Okay. Avery, is it day one or one day?
Day one.
Okay. Glass half empty or glass half full?
Glass half full.
Okay. Now, Avery, this is for the cafe. Okay.
Okay.
Are you team tea or are you team coffee? Team tea,
Oh,
team coffee.
I have to say Team Tea. I've been
Okay.
drinking tea my whole life, and I love it, and I drink it every day.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Avery, for playing
Of
around
course,
of
thank
this
you.
or that for us as well. Now, Avery, you got to share with the people, okay?
Mm,
Is there any writing must haves or writing quirks that Avery have when she's in the writing cave?
mm. I love writing to music. I feel like
Oh,
that writing to music really does set the kind of mental tone for whatever it is you're
okay.
writing about. Especially for this book, I loved writing to the period music, appropriate period music to
Oh,
really get into the space and the mindset of these characters. But also, a
okay.
lot of my music choices are very much about the emotions of these characters. So I can
Wow.
definitely say I listened to a lot of very moody music while I was writing this, a lot of very atmospheric, lyrical music, a lot of Hosier, a lot of ballads, really to get into the mindset of these characters and invoke a lot of their thoughts and emotions. So yes, I love writing to music, and it's pretty much a must for me.
Wow, how super cool is that? Now, speaking of music, Avery,
Mhm,
um, we here at the cafe, we love a good playlist. Is there a
mhm.
playlist to go with the mayor of Maxwell Street as well? And if so, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, there is a playlist. It's on Spotify. If you Google Mayor of Maxwell Street Spotify playlist or check out the link on any of my bios on social media, it'll take you to the playlist. And that playlist is specific to the book. It features all of the songs that are named in the book, all of the songs that take place during specific scenes in the book. So it's a really great reading experience if you're, reading alone and you are in a scene where a song is referenced or a scene where music is one of the central themes. You can stop, go to the playlist, and play that song while you're reading. It really enhances the entire experience, I feel, and allows you to step fully into that era, into that environment.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh my goodness, guys, if you're just joining us, hanging out with Avery Cunningham, the mayor of Maxwell Street. I'm super duper excited. And we do have a giveaway. We will be giving away an ebook copy of The
Mm.
Mayor of Maxwell Street. And Avery, I'm going to get you to help me, my friend. We're going to go up
Yes.
and down the comment section. You're
Okay.
going to tell me when to stop, and that person will be the winner of an ebook copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Are you
Oh,
ready?
wow. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Okay. I am. I'm going and I'm ready when you are.
All right. Okay. And go.
Okay. Just whenever you tell me to stop.
And stop.
Okay. Cheryl Brooks. She says, sounds like a story I need to check out. I love period pieces. Cheryl, you are the winner of an ebook copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Congratulations, my friend. If you will inbox me your email information, I'll be sure that you get your copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street in ebook format. I love that. I love that. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, for you, Avery,
Mm,
can you share with us, my friend, what did you enjoy about
mm,
writing The Mayor of Maxwell Street?
mm. I loved learning more about the history of Chicago. I loved learning about all of the incredible diversity in this city, how so many different cultures from within the United States and without really met and mingled in Chicago, and all of the different ways those different cultures interacted. It was just a really vibrant and lush setting in American history, filled with so many emotions of the time. The great highs of American history happened in Chicago, but also some of the really profound lows happened in Chicago. You have everything from um, the World's Fair happening in Chicago a little bit before this time, the World's Fair really carried over into the 20s a lot. But also you had, the 1919 race riots of Chicago, which were incredibly violent and really changed the entire landscape of the city. And so learning about this city's history, especially a city that I lived in for a while, I attended DePaul University, which is in Chicago. So it's like a second home to me. And this really felt like a great way to honor that city, to honor its history, and honor the really great impact it left on me in my life.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Avery. And I want you also to think about this
Mm,
and answer it for us. When readers read The Mayor of Maxwell Street, what do you want them to take away from the story?
mm. That's interesting. Well, I will say, of course, I want everyone's opinions of the story to be different and unique and specific to your experiences. But if there has to be one question that I hope readers take with them, or at least reflect back on as they reach the end of the story, it's the idea that wealth will not save you, that the right name, the right ambition, the right job, even the right love will not always save you from the systemic challenges that are created to maintain a status quo, to oppress people, to
Mm,
to keep division amongst people, that it takes
mm,
more than your individual goals and hopes and ambitions to challenge and change all of those different barriers to life, especially in this country. But
mhm.
the question is it worth it? Is freedom worth it in the end? And both of our main characters, I think, make that choice for themselves, whether it is or isn't. And it's up for the reader really to discover how they personally feel about that choice of living for myself or living for your legacy.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness, guys. Thank you so much, Avery. It has been amazing hanging out with you on today, talking about the mayor of Maxwell Street. And of course, I'm sure the people want to know, how can they get their hands on a copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street?
Yes, of course. So, pretty much anywhere books are sold, you can find a copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street, whether it be Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Books a Million or your local indie bookstore. Of course, as you can see, there's an Kindle ebook version that you can buy through all of your kind of ebook platforms. There's a wonderful audio version, audible version, narrated by Bonnie Turpin, who does a truly fantastic job bringing this story to life. So, I highly recommend the audible version as well. So yeah, there are really dozens and dozens of ways to enjoy this story, and whatever way is best for your reading experience, there's a Mayor of Maxwell Street edition for you.
I love that, guys. You have heard it here. It is available in all three formats. Y'all know we love when books are available in all three formats: audio, ebook, and print. You can get a copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street. We will definitely put the link in the comment section of how
Mhm.
you can get your hands on a copy of this book as well. And of course, Avery, please share with us, how can we stay connected with you?
Yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at Avery Writes Big Books. I'm also at Avery Writes Big Books on TikTok. I'm on Facebook, Avery Cunningham author, and then on Twitter as AA_Cunningham. But I'm very active on Instagram, so I highly recommend that if you're active on that site at all, you come over and follow me. We have a lot of great conversations, a lot of wonderful content, a lot of pictures of my dog. So it's a really fun time.
I love that. I love that. And Avery, is there a website and a newsletter that they can connect with you as well?
Yes, definitely. My website is averycunninghamauthor.com. And there are tons of ways, either through the website or if you go to any of my social media pages, I have a sign up for newsletters and just staying in touch with emails over there. So there are wonderful ways to stay in contact with me. I'm also totally open to any direct messaging as well. So if you have a question, please feel free to reach out.
I love that. I love that. Well, Avery, and thank you so much for joining us here at the cafe on today. We've had an amazing time talking about The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Guys,
Mhm.
make sure that you tell a friend to tell a friend about this story. And of course, once you read it, definitely leave a review. I know that Avery Cunningham will be so appreciative of that as
Mhm.
well. If you see it out in the wild, definitely take a picture and tag her as well.
Yes.
Guys, thank you for coming and hanging out with us. I'm Angela Anderson of Angel's Literary Cafe. Of course, you can follow me on social media. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Angela Anderson's YouTube, as well, if you have not done so. And of course, guys, I want to make sure that Avery has the last words of what she wants to say to the people today.
Yes, just thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listening to our conversation, participating in our conversation. I really have to recommend this novel for anyone who enjoys historical fiction, who enjoys a little bit of mystery, of suspense, of thrillers, of romance, but more importantly, anyone who's really interested in the human choices that people have to make every single day for larger goals and ambitions and how far people are going to go to achieve those particular goals. But yes, thank you so much. It was wonderful being here. This has been an excellent conversation.
Thank you so much, Avery. We appreciate you for joining us today. Guys, that is our show. And as we always say, have an amazing day because we're having an amazing day. And until next time, we'll see you later. Get you a copy of The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Bye bye.